All right, everybody, close your eyes, bow your heads, and we're going to pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity you give us to be in your house one more time. Thank you for allowing us to be here and practice and hear about your word. And thank you for the practice that we had. And we put this Bible study in your hand, and that everything that we learned today, we can apply it into our lives every single day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay. Oh, it's your dad's. Okay.
What was that?
Something fell. I don't know. Okay. So what did we talk about last week? You guys remember last week? Were you here last week? Okay. Chapter 2? No, chapter 3. Yeah. What happened?
You were asking all the questions.
So what did we leave off in chapter 3 last week? No, we didn't. So what was the?
Hello?
So,
Oh yeah, you guys use your mics.
oh, you're gonna say something? Oh, Eric is gonna say something.
Oh, Eric's got something. Which?
He said that
Wasn't it when they were hiding from God?
Yeah. Right. So I think we finished around. I think it was actually verse 16, I believe it's what actually, or 14. But the main thing we were trying to get on that one was actually trying to see pretty much it was that they started talking about it was, yeah, they were hiding, they were trying to be covered up. We're trying to figure out why were they hiding if they pretty much, if they know that, God's watching all the time, like how are they hiding, right? All that stuff that we're trying to cover, right? So before we get started, as far as going back to that again, what we're going to do is go back a little bit to chapter 1. Daisy's going to do this one, but Daisy's not here right now, so we're going to go ahead. And we have the fill-ins right here.
We are Daisy.
Yeah, you get
Yeah.
together. So what we're going to do is actually go back to Genesis 1, right? And so I'm going to try to do the best I can to actually explain this like the way Daisy's going to explain it, and we'll just kind of go from there. So let me see. Okay, so when we look at Genesis 1 on day 6, what happened day 6? You guys remember? I'm sorry, if you want to look, you can look right here if you want to. So, okay, so in Genesis 1:26, right here is pretty much, and God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, and the creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind, and it was so, right? And so what we're trying to do on this one is actually trying to see, like, what does that mean, right? This is one thing that's kind of happening. And if we look at it in the very beginning, how many different things are happening? How many different creatures are kind of going on? Because what we think about it is, like, right away we say, oh, well, like, he just created animals and that was it, right? But what else is pretty much it saying right here? Okay, so you have right here, you have the livestock, comma, the creatures that move along the ground, comma, and the wild animals, right? And what's the difference between those three things? According to its kind. Okay. Well, and we'll keep going. So then,
Mike.
yeah, Mike.
In that day, did he create the sea animals too?
Huh? No, because remember that's a different day.
Oh, okay.
So right, we're talking about pretty much on this one was mostly,
Land.
yeah, land. It's stuck. Oh, that's why. Okay. So yeah, on that one, pretty much we're just talking about right now is just that first person. So let's go to the next one, right? 25, right? Verse 25 says, God made the wild animals according to his kind, the livestock according to their kinds, and all creatures that move along the ground according to their kind, and God saw it, and it was good. So you get the repetition again as far as what's going on. So like just like how we did last time, where it says like if there's things are being repeated again and again, then it actually means something, right? Hey, Eric, can you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
Can you go there and invite Daisy again on the? Oh no, that's the teams.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because Gigi's thing is on too.
Oh no. Yeah. Give her a call from over there on that side. Yeah, give her get your phone just in case and call her from that side so she can join in.
Like a lot going on.
Oh yeah. Okay, so then let's get to the next one, right? So next one says, then God said, let us make mankind in our likeness, And in our likeness, and so that we may rule over the fish in the sea, the birds of the sky, and over the livestock and the wild animals, and over all creatures that move along the ground, right? So it's not just saying like, hey, man is only here to pretty much be in charge of just one specific type of animal, but everything, right? And so they keep repeating the exact same thing: livestock, creatures of the ground, wild things, as far as like, wild animals, where they're at. So what's the differences between those three things is what we're trying to get at now. Because before we're just saying just animals, humans, and that's it, right? It doesn't matter if it's land or sea. We're thinking it's just plain easy as far as no big deal, right? So then one of the notes that Daisy pretty much had was pretty much saying humans are the ones are elevated to rule pretty much all of the creations, right? They establish a major design pattern to biblical history, God's elevation of the what's she writing?
Latecomer?
Yeah. Latecomer to the role of honor above early comers, right? So it's pretty much what she's trying to say right there is like I just said earlier, it's that, all those things were created first, and then, humans come in afterwards. But yet, even though they were created first, we're here to pretty much rule them, right? And that's all she's trying to say on that one, right? So on this, right, in the book of Genesis, right, the theme of the latecomers, right, elevation often focuses on the jealousy and anger and early comer, right? And what she's trying to say there is just because something was actually created first doesn't mean that it has like the priority, right? When you look at Cain and Abel, right, who's actually the one that ends up pretty much being like elevated higher? Abel, and he's the second one, right? If you look at Jacob and Esau, right, how does that story go? Yeah. Yeah, it gets elevated, right? And so, again, you got the second one, right? And then Joseph and his brothers, how many brothers did he have? 12. And then so who actually ended up pretty much being elevated at the very end? Yeah, the youngest one. So right now we're trying to see this pretty much pattern. Even in David, right? We're seeing this pattern right now where it's pretty much showing that for some reason it's not really the first ones that end up always ruling. It sometimes ends up being the second one, the third one, the last one that ends up ruling. So and what they're trying to make this, what Daisy's trying to make this note here is just that don't focus all the time on the first thing, because sometimes it's going to come back where the second thing's going to be ruling, and that's what's trying to make that same relationship between here and the rest of the story in the Bible, because we're going to keep seeing that besides these stories that she listed, there's going to be even more. And so the next thing she pretty much put down was she started to pretty much, I think, highlight. Oh, it's stuck. There it goes. Okay, and so she started highlighting pretty much those things right there as far as 24, 25, and 26. So 24, right? Let the land produce living creatures, right, according to its kind, and the livestock, and the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, right? So now you can see pretty much all those things that she's trying to highlight, right? Again and again and again that we saw, as far as before, right? But what makes it actually different, all right? So, and this right here, right? So livestock, right, which we're going to start kind of like explaining every little thing. Livestock pretty much means domesticated animals, right? And do you guys know what domesticated animals mean?
Yes.
They're domesticated? Okay. Anything else?
Tamed animals.
What's that?
Tamed?
Yeah, tamed animals, right? Yeah, exactly. So we would think of tame animals as like dogs or something like that. But in reality, back in the day, it would be like cows and stuff like that. I mean, like they didn't have pet dogs everywhere, you know what I mean? So that's when we mean by domesticated animals. Animals are just easier to maintain, to take care of, right? So let's go to the next one, right? So the wild ones that run and hide, right? And on this one, like, what would you think as far as the animals that run and hide? Snakes? Why do you go straight to snakes for?
Because they move along the ground.
They move along the ground? Okay. Danny?
Maybe like fast creatures, for example, like
Wolves?
yeah. So
Okay, like wolves or cheetahs or something like that. Okay. Yeah.
But then that will fall under the wild animals too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get to, right? So it's there's gonna be a difference between that portion that says creatures that move along the ground versus wild animals. Scorpions? Yeah, sure.
Scorpion.
More of the like wild ones, but
Like
they're the wild what is it? The move along the ground. So I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure it's like probably like rats and stuff like that. They run around the like ground, but they still hide from like their predators and stuff.
Okay.
Probably the wild animals be like lions. I mean, lions don't hide from nobody.
Yeah.
They're wild.
Okay. Gotcha.
Something
Okay.
messy.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Whoa.
Yeah, Daisy's here.
Daisy.
Oh.
Okay, but yes. Oh, you have? Okay, go for it.
Of Of course you do.
Make you guys think about is like what wild animal in the Bible is mentioned. It's a
There's a lot.
really crazy animal.
Right?
Lion?
No. It's in the.
It's not the devil in it.
Books. I'm narrowing it down.
Ah. Eh?
You know the answer? You know the answer?
Everybody knows? The animal that gets
That's
Okay.
an
called
animal?
in Job. Manuel talked about it.
Oh, you talked about it. So you
He's
know the
here.
answer.
He's here
Oh,
too.
here with us.
I didn't hear it. I didn't see him.
He's sitting on the other side. El Leviathan?
Yeah.
A
So
leviathan.
those are what
Leviathan?
are considered. Yeah.
Leviathan.
Those are the wild animals
Huh?
that are also.
Like if you think about, remember whenever like Eric actually did like his presentation and it had like these like huge creatures or stuff like that. You would think something like not like really crazy like evil like those ones, but just like this huge. Huh? Yeah.
Daisy, we need
No?
a visual representation on the next slide.
I
please.
know.
Yeah. Real quick. Yeah.
Go at it right now, real quick.
Okay. So you
But
ready
yeah,
to
that
go?
was it.
Okay. Okay. So then there's pretty much gonna be your explanation, right, for the wild ones that run and hide, right? Okay. So the next one, right, the wild beast. All right. What would be a wild beast? A lion? Okay. A tiger? A leviathan? We just said earlier. Okay. A bear? Okay.
That's not
So
domesticated.
you guys see it as like a really crazy like territorial thing is what you guys are thinking. A carnivore? Okay, that's what pretty much
Yeah,
same
like-
thing is what you're trying to say.
An animal that goes and like
Sure.
hunts.
Okay.
Is it
Eric's got
is-
something else.
Is
Go
it
ahead.
the opposite of livestock? Like
Opposite of
not
livestock?
like the ones that are not domesticated?
Okay. Yeah. Daisy, you want to take this one or you want me to do it?
Oh, I thought we already answered it.
No, but the wild beast, we didn't answer yet. We did the ones that run and hide, but we didn't do the wild beast.
Oh, wait.
You did
Oh,
do the
that's
wild.
what I-
You skipped
yeah.
already, Daisy.
Sorry.
Yeah, Daisy skipped, bro. We weren't even there
I'm
yet.
sorry.
That's
Okay.
all right.
I was like, oh, that animal hides. Like,
So another way that you can think about, like what Daisy's saying with the Leviathan, right? Like, does that make sense to you? What that even is? Yeah, it's a creature. Okay, it's huge. Okay, so what's the difference between an animal that's here, like an elephant or like a lion, compared to a Leviathan?
Is it like there to like purposely like hunt and do evil?
No,
No.
no. So I mean,
I've never seen it.
Sure.
I'm not sure what it does.
the way that Daisy was describing it to me, and Daisy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? Is
I'll try to put a picture in the meantime.
yeah. So yeah, just send it to the WhatsApp, Daisy, just in case. So yeah, that one right there, right? That one's crazy,
Yeah.
right? That's just like all like something completely different, right? And when you think about that, that's kind of like, what does that bring, right? Because a lot of times you think about this and you're just thinking this thing's gonna come over here and like cause all kinds of harm, things gonna go crazy, right? But what a wild beast could really be is just the merge between the spiritual things and the earthly things. So when you think about like the cherubims and everything else, right? Every time you see the cherubim, what do they say? It's always like three different creatures into like one, right? It's always like this crazy thing that's pretty much happening, right? Yeah, a lion and wings. So like, and then it goes back to pretty much Eric's presentation, right? So Eric's presentation he had last time on Daniel, he had like a bear that was just like a bear, like nothing was crazy about it. But then he had all these other like animals that had like horns on it that didn't belong with horns, or a cheetah that had wings on it, like all kinds of things, right? Yeah. Microphone. she's like, I'm done talking. So the main point we're trying to make on the wild animals, right, is not so much to say that like, hey, there are these creatures out there, right? They're like always doing harm. It's just to say there was creatures at the time frame, right, in Eden, right, that were pretty much this mixture breed as far as of things that we just don't see nowadays, right? And so we're gonna get there eventually as far as to try to explain that. But it's more to show that yes, there is those domesticated animals like cows. They're the ones that kind of crawl and go away as far as like you can call them like prey or whatever that are never staying by, and then you can call the wild animals the ones that are kind of like this mixture breed of things that we don't really see, but only saw so far in Eden.
So in today's day, basically, we don't have wild animals.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we consider wild animals will be creatures that
Yeah,
move
like
along
these-
the ground.
Yeah, these morphed animals that pretty much take shapes of everything else, right? And so that's what we're trying to pretty much get to that point before we start talking more about the serpent, right? Because a lot of times we talk about the serpent, and we'll get there in a minute, and it says, crawl on your belly. And you're like, shouldn't you already be crawling on your belly? Like, what's the difference? Huh? Yeah, and that's what we're going to get to, right? It's that when you think about, like, the spiritual things, we're even talking about where this thing that came down to pretty much talk to Adam and Eve, right, and tell them to pretty much eat this apple or eat the fruit, whatever you want to call it. And by us doing that, like, how did it take a form of something, right? So that's what I'm trying to get to, right? We're trying to pretty much paint that picture first as far as that you have this thing that isn't like, you know, you can call it like a serpent, but they're going to call it a serpent, but you just think about it that way, right? Okay, so let's go see the next ones, right? So, okay, so we talked about this as far as between chapter 1, as far as we did all that. And then here goes Daisy, right? Daisy pretty much put down on the slide over here. And she put down, actually, let me do this. Give me a second. So she put down, right, on verse 1 on chapter 3, it says, now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals. So now we know the category of the serpent. It's part of those wild animals. And that's what we're trying to say as far as, like, those wild animals were there in Eden. They lived amongst them. They were always all over the place you can think of, right? It's not just like it just showed up one time and that was it. No, it was among them. Yeah. She got a lizard over here.
That's what I think about a lizard.
Yeah. And that's fine, yeah. And so right here and she goes back and pretty much puts down, you know, Genesis 1:24, right? And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to this kind, right? And the livestock and the creatures that move around the ground and the wild animals, right? So it's you're seeing that again as far as we come back to chapter 3, right?
So basically, the serpent was basically like, it's more than a wild animal, but it's basically considered like a wild animal since it's like, you know, it's a creature, but it has some type of like spiritual thing. Like, let's say the devil was in it. So that will be considered like a wild animal back then.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. It's
But
pretty much
more than
the spiritual and like the pretty much the physical self pretty much met itself back in the day, right? And they all kind of like lived among each other, you can say, as far as on the wild animals, right? Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? Okay.
There was a comment. So there was a question where I had talked to Eric about. I was messaging Eric, and then Eric said, "Oh, is the serpent? What'd you say? Is it the serpent, Satan, or is it just
Yeah.
a snake?"
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I kind of was thinking about it, and we can't really say, "Oh, like it is Satan or it is a serpent." All we know is that the Bible just says it's a wild animal, and this animal or this creature that is, you know, was created, has these characteristics. And as you see that throughout the Bible, it's that same characteristics that we see over and over again that make humans fall, or make humans fail in what God's purpose truly is. So to answer the question, Eric, we don't know. I can't per se say it is Satan or not, but all we know is this creature that has these characteristics, and it was one of the based on what we saw in Genesis 1:24, it's one of the creatures that were created on day 6.
Yeah, and I think to add back to that
Hopefully
point,
makes sense.
I think to add back to that point too, right? We talked about last time was like, what does Satan even mean, right? We're seeing it as like a title, kind of like we did with pretty much with God, right? We said, you know, that's just Elohim. It's this spiritual pool of pretty much these creatures that kind of live among themselves, right? The angels, God's in there, everything else is in there, right? So you think of Satan, you think of everybody always thinks they're just one person, but it's not. It's not like a one thing kind of thing. It's and we go back and what did we say as far as what Satan actually means? Adversary, right? And so it's not so much as to say that like it's one person, like what Eric's trying to ask about earlier is like, is that really this, you know, the one person we would try to say that it's pretty much the adversary that we always have? But no, you can go back to like Elohim. It's multiple ones, right? When you think of like the bad spirits that are here on this world, right? Whatever the case would be, you think of just one that's always going around, right? No, it's going to be like all kinds of random things happening all the time, right? So it's kind of like we can start from there as far as pivot off. So So we pretty much went back, right, and we started talking about, what is actually the serpent's attributes? What do they mean? And, we went to pretty much saying it's crafty, it's shrewd, right? We said all those words and how those words actually can go back to this same word in Spanish too that you guys have in the Bible. So, and then on 6 through 7, right, we started talking about how the woman finally gave in, right, and actually ate the fruit, and Adam ate it as well, right? And at that point, right, it's pretty much here and highlighted in orange. It's pretty much saying they realized that they were naked, right, and they had to pretty much put leaves together to try to cover themselves up because they just felt really unnatural, and it felt like it was actually like we said, the word was, pretty much shame, right? And so on chapter 3, 8 through 9, right, we were talking about how, Yahweh Elohim that comes up, and we're talking about how, what are those little things that come up, right? We talk about how with the spirit, right? We talk about, how that makes noises, right? With the wind, right? Or the breath, whatever you want to call it, right? All those things were pretty much shown in 8 to 9, saying that how God's spirit pretty much just comes around, right? And they acknowledge it, right? And they say pretty much like on the next chapters, right? On the next verses, sorry, how, why did you hide, right? And he's like, I heard you, right? And that's what we talked about last week, is because the wind, right? The sound of the wind, the time of the day, right? We were talking about. And so what we finished off yesterday or last week with is pretty much verse 13. So let's go back and just read verse 12 real quick. It says, the man said, let's go back to the beginning on verse 10. So God's pretty much talking to Adam, right? And so Adam's pretty much trying to respond back to him. And he says, he answered, right? I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? And then 12 says, the man said, the woman you put here with me, right, she gave me the fruit of the tree, and I ate it. And then 13 comes back and says, Yahweh's pretty much talking back, and now he's going to, instead of talking to Adam, right, he's going to now talk to pretty much Eve. And he's going to say, then Yahweh Elohim said to the woman, what have you done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate it, right? And what we pretty much were trying to talk about last week was how, like, right away, as far as our human nature, after we ate of the tree, right, what God's actually trying to talk to Adam and Eve about is trying to figure out, are they going to take responsibility for their actions? Are they going to say, we messed up, you know what, forgive us? Like, this is our time to repent to you and let you know that we did wrong. No, they just went back and just said, you did it, and then she went over and said, you did it. Like, it's just pointing the finger. Nobody's taking any kind of responsibility for their actions to say that, hey, I messed up. No, they just always just want to point the finger. And so, and always, like we talked about last time, like, how did God allow this to happen? Or how did, all these things are going to go into play, right? And it goes back to pretty much the choice that pretty much humans had to make. He made us so we can pretty much be in partnership, right, with him. As far as he's up there, we're down here, we're going to pretty much rule over here. Like we talked about with the animals, we're in charge of ruling. So if he's able to really try to figure out like what's going to happen, it's just like a parent, like we talked about last week. You have to try to figure out what your kid's doing, and their choices, not yours, as far as what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's a reflection, right, as far as of us being human. So are we good so far as between 10 and 13? All right, Daisy, you good at 10 and 13?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I think she probably peed on mute. Kayla's probably crying.
I'm good.
Okay, so 14 to 15, right? Does anybody else want to read this one real quick? Okay, go ahead and get the mic. Daniel's always ready.
So Yahweh Elohim said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put my enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel.
Yeah. So Daisy's been on this for like the whole week and trying to tell me like, hey, this is how I'm interpreting this. And it didn't really like click to me until literally I was just waiting for Eric to show up today, and I was reading it and I was like, oh, like this makes so much more sense. And so when we go back, right, and we're talking about pretty much like, when we look at pretty much like 15, right, it says between you and the woman, right? So we always think about like, okay, between the serpent as far as the adversary, right, versus the woman, right? And we're always talking about that, but what does that really mean, right? Or even when we get to the part where it says right here, between your offspring, right, and hers. Like, what does that mean? Like, did that kind of click to you guys to figure out, like, offspring? Like, why would the serpent have offspring? And why would there be, like, this weird thing between them, right? They're enemies. Okay, so let's get into that one, right? So on verse 15, yeah, Mike. On verse 15, right, it says, I will put enmity, right? So what do you guys think that word even means? What? It's pretty much here. And I will put,
Enmity?
huh? Rivalry? Well, rivalry would be like competition, so it's not really competition.
Well, fear, like us humans will fear the. I'm trying to find the right word.
That's all right. They're enemies? I'm about to give all you guys a mic. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Eric. That's okay. He's got one, yeah.
It's like more of a bond.
More of a bond
I feel like
Okay.
it's something they share.
that they share together?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like the end to something.
The end? Okay, so let's. Oh, you got one more? Beginning? Everything? Okay.
I mean, we're saying like they're like against each other and then like connected. I don't know. Tell us.
Okay, so here we go. Okay, so what is it, right? It's pretty much, enmity is pretty much a state of feeling actively opposed or hostile to someone or something, right? Remember we talked about last time, we were looking at what was crafty, what was shrewd, what was the attributes of pretty much of Satan, right? Or the serpent, you want to call him, right? And we said pretty much that like how he would use tactics to get around you, right? He would do certain things and to manipulate you to get what he wanted, right? Like he would guide you in the direction that he wanted to pretty much put you. So when you look at that, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You're having this hostile person, this hostile thing that's always going to be opposed to you, right? So let's go to the next thing, right? It says hostile. So what does hostile mean, right? We're doing this like we did last week. Hostility, right? Unfriendliness or opposition, right? So something that's always against you. Like we looked at last time, the attributes. Okay, let's look at a different word instead, right? Friction. It's just another way to say it. It's the resistance of one surface of objects encounters when moving over another, right? So it's kind of like if me and you are walking next to each other, right? It's almost like I'm gonna get in your way as much as possible and not let you pass. That's the friction. I'm gonna try to make it as hard as possible for you to go. Yeah, with magnets, right? Yeah.
About that friction and no friction.
Yeah. So, okay, and then I put it right here in Spanish, right? So that way we can see it. For some reason, the Spanish words just hit so much harder. I don't know why. Like it just, like yeah. And so like when you see it in English, it just kind of like we hear that word all the time, no big deal. But in Spanish, when you see it, just for some reason it just seems like it's a little different, right? And harder? Or is English harder?
Yeah, I feel like it hits harder because enemistad, like you can put another word with the end to it, like amistad. So enemistad. So it doesn't sound better. I feel like enemy.
Oh, like it tricks you in a way.
Yeah.
I guess you're saying.
So it doesn't sound too bad as far as like
Okay.
enemy. I feel like it does.
Yeah. Okay. That's not bad. And so Daisy had pretty much the next one, right, which is these slides. And so what she's trying to pretty much say on these slides is kind of like what we're going to read in a little bit, right, is this difference as far as the curse that happens, right, with the serpent, right? And so here's pretty much a depiction, like some pictures, right, of that, right? So you have this serpent, right? When you think of the serpent, you think of this like mighty thing, right? Because in the verses, right, it's going to talk about is how the serpent is the one doing this attacking or trying to find a way to get to pretty much the seed that comes up of the woman, right? And so here's the one, right? It goes over and actually bites his ankle. So you see pretty much like the serpent looks like huge, right? Look how big his head is, right? Like it's almost bigger than the guy's calf and his whole leg. And then, so then next you see pretty much how like the serpent's pretty much done, right? They already
Can I
bit
s-
him. Go ahead, Daisy.
Oh, you have to read. Sorry, you'd have to.
Yeah, you
read-
pretty much put it. Yeah, you put it before, but it's okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, here let's go over there because you already started getting a little bit too much on this one. So let's do this one. Okay. Who wants to read? You want to read again? Okay, go ahead.
To the
So-
woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to your children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you.
Right. So, and what do we mean by this, right? So why is it that there's this pretty much the severe punishment, right, for the woman, right, when it comes to just childbearing?
Wait, say it again. Sorry.
Like, why is it that pretty much you look at right, on 16, right, it says, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe, and your painful labor will give you the birth, And let's call it the painful labor. You will give, birth to children. As far as why is it that that's happening?
Like, why that punishment?
Yeah. That didn't have pain before, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
I feel like it's the same thing as.
It's okay.
I feel like it's the same thing as like, how God was telling him like, hey, you want this now? You want the fruit? You gotta like basically put hard labor into it.
Right.
Same thing with this. I feel like back then. Well, we only saw it happen one time. Like let's say a human come to life without labor.
Yeah.
And they had that in the Garden of Eden, and then so now basically it's saying like you want another human being, you're gonna have to go through the same thing as
Okay.
labor.
So kind of like what Enya is saying, right? Like you're saying in the beginning, hey, it was really easy. You didn't have to go through anything. Now you're gonna have to. Okay. Daniel, what do you got?
Yeah, I also think like he gave this punishment because like, for example, you're excited and you want to have this child, but like you have to go through all this pain in order to have him. So
Okay.
basically, you want to meet him or her, like you're excited for it, but you have to go through pain.
Okay. Okay.
The way I saw it, and it's pretty common sense the way I would say it, but like he gave the serpent the punishment.
Yep.
Like you did that, so now you're gonna do this. Like you will crawl, whatever, and then
And we haven't got there yet, too. So that's the other
Eve,
thing, right?
okay,
Yeah.
never
It's
mind.
okay. It's okay.
And then to Eve, it was like, and you over here, you're gonna have to go through pain and stuff. Like it's like I'm giving punishment to both of you for like what y'all did, and it's just. I'm still. I feel like I need to see more to process what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Just
And
keep
I don't
going.
think we've gone through it yet. I don't. Oh yeah, no, we did. Yeah, we did. I'm ready.
haven't-
Daisy's
you
picture threw
haven't-
me off for a second. Sorry, Daisy. Okay, so then yeah, okay, that would make sense. So pretty much we went through pretty much the serpent, right? We said what's gonna happen to him, and like we talked about before, the wild things, right? As far as the wild animals, they probably had like wings, everything else, and so what it's pretty much being told later on is that you're gonna be on the ground. Now they go to the woman and say, hey, the punishment you're gonna have, right, is pretty much doing childbirth, right? And it kind of goes back to like the seed, right? How the seed is going to be this punishment, right? As far as for on the serpent side, but not on the actual on Eve's side, right? So let's go on to the next one, right? So 3:17 to 19. You want to do this one again? Yeah. Okay, go for it. Yeah, he's excited to read.
To Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife and ate the fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. You must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all these days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles to you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return.
Okay, so do we think
Question.
that... Go for it. Yeah.
So did they not eat before this?
Okay, so that's okay.
I was trying to make sure I
Yeah, give it the microphone.
Can I ask a question after?
Yeah, that's fine.
They ate, but they didn't work for it because God
There
made
you
it
go.
for them.
There you go.
That's what I had to.
Also, where it says it will produce thorns, so plants before that. They
Yeah,
didn't
so like
produce-
if we go back and think about it, right? So like whenever God put us in pretty much the Garden of Eden and everything else, right? Like we literally didn't have to do anything. You just chill all day, right? Like
For example, to pick the fruit, you won't have to be careful.
no, you didn't have to do
Yeah.
And remember in the beginning it said, "Hey, you're only going to eat right from the
Oh,
trees."
okay.
That was it. That's all it said. That's all you're going to do is eat from the trees, nothing to do with anything, right? It's very specific as far as
literally eat from everything
Yeah.
except for this one.
Yeah, and so now, you have to go to a point where like you're gonna say, like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to pretty much eat. I'm gonna pretty much do all the crops. I have to sweat now to actually make this food for me, to, as far as to provide for myself. I gotta do all these things, and like, what punishment is this for? Like, so the woman was more for bearing kids, as far as like that's gonna be hard for her. But for the man, it's like you're gonna have to work for this thing. You're gonna have to provide for this family, right? But also the same thing is that because he was literally in charge in the very beginning, right? Whenever God created us, what was the first thing he told us to do? Rule. And then what else was there? to not eat from the tree, right? And he was the one that was told first. So it's pretty much it's him that he needs to tell the wife as far as, or to tell Eve, hey, you're not supposed to do this. He was in charge. He was responsible. Yes.
Got a question. It's kind of not a really good.
You got that
question,
microphone?
But like, could, like for example, let's say that Eve picked out the fruit.
Yeah.
And like, tricked them into like, what if she tricked them into eat it? But like,
You're saying tricked Adam into eating it?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, could they tell the difference, like how it looked and stuff?
But you gotta remember, like on the passages, right? When it said, it didn't say that like, oh, the serpent was talking to her, and then she ate it, and then walked over and gave it to Adam and said, hey, you want to eat this with me? No, it said that he was with her.
No, that's not what I mean. but
Okay, my bad. I took that one wrong. Go ahead.
Could they tell, like for example, if they didn't like, what if one fruit fell from the tree?
All right, let's say 100 years later, there's like more population, not just Adam and Eve. Let's
Okay.
say Eric goes, grabs it, walks another mile to give it to you.
Okay.
And you're, hey, bro, I just picked this up, not
Yeah.
from the tree,
Yeah.
obviously, but I gave it to you. How would you tell? It's a different. I mean, I'm pretty sure it had like
Okay.
apple and
So
banana.
you're
you could
saying
tell
that,
the
like-
difference. That's what I'm guessing.
So you're
I'm
saying
asking the
like
question.
I get it, but so you're saying that pretty much like if the serpent was at a different tree or for some reason, or if an apple if a fruit fell and it rolled like 20 feet and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's part of a different tree, I'm gonna eat it and be okay. I think like the picture you need to really have for a tree is not so much as to say all these trees are really next to each other,
Yeah.
as to say this one's so divine that it's by itself. There's nothing around it,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
how-
know it's by itself.
that's
And then
how
you have
I
another
picture it.
one, the same thing. It's by itself. It's very grand. Maybe we saw the picture too, where like we had like these huge trees, and they're like very beautiful trees, right? And they're like just if you look at it, you can tell it's like, huh?
No, it's like you just know it is.
Yeah. You just know it's like gonna be different. And the same thing
Yeah.
too when they told them like, don't eat of this. And I think we started talking about in chapter 3 in the very beginning where it's saying, because on one of the verses it says that tree is in the middle, right? It's in the middle of pretty much the garden. So okay, gardens, I have a little bit of here, a little bit there. That's middle. Don't do that one.
Yeah.
Don't even go
You
to
know
that
what it
one,
looks
right?
like too.
Yeah, and so like, but the other one is a little bit further away. So to go back to your point, I don't think it was kind of like, oh well, it's really close by. It's not bad. The serpent really wasn't doing anything wrong.
That was his question.
Yeah, no, I know. But I'm just
Nah.
saying, like,
I also looked at it like, here, eat this banana. I'm like, it's not a banana, that's an apple.
Yeah.
Probably
You're
wouldn't
right,
know what
that's
it
how.
looks like.
That's where the apples and bananas song came
Yeah,
from.
apples and
Yeah.
banana.
Apples and
Oh, I have another statement. It's
sure.
kind of like a question, but it answered itself.
Yeah.
So basically, back then they were like vegetarian, because
Yeah, I guess you can say that.
there was
Yeah.
no like, they didn't know between bad and good. So they in their heads they were like, oh, let's kill this and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. So
Hey.
they're
Oh, is
vegetarian.
that
Yeah.
okay? Never mind.
What's up?
I thought I was playing like a thing on the keys. No, don't worry. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. The pads are on. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page now, right? As far as like what that looks like and what does that mean for the man, as far as what his responsibility is now, right? As far as when it comes to, like, why is his curse a little bit different, right? When it comes to woman, right? And so what that actually means. So, and at the same time, let's look a bit further at the very bottom, right? It says, "Dust you are, and dust you will return," right? So before, like you were saying last time, and then you're saying like, hey, they didn't have to really work for it. It was easy for them. They didn't have pain before. Now they do. Well, now that's actually telling them at the same time, you have a life expectancy. You're not going to live forever like you were going to do before, right? So now he's just pushing them further and further away from what was pretty much his ideal situation for man. Yeah. So now pretty much, and like I said, like the name Adam, right? What does it actually mean? The name Adam. Something about God? It means Adam. Okay. It has God in it? No. It's a pop quiz.
Cheater. No, just
Okay, it's fine if you guys don't know. Don't worry about it. So Adam would mean pretty much like earthy. It's man, right? So where's man from? The ground. It's really easy. So it's kind of like it's a play on word to say, dust you come from, dust you go back, because you are dust, and therefore that's it. Yeah, dust is the name. That's all it is. So. Okay, so that makes sense so far? So it's kind of like when you think of like dust you are and dust you came from, like, why does it say you're dust? You came from the ground, right? That is your name, is Adam.
So for all the Adams out there.
Yeah, dust. Okay. Eve? So I'll get there in a minute, right? It didn't say Eve yet. I don't think, yeah, so right here, there's, right there, verse 20. You're getting ahead of yourself. Okay, so verse 20 to 24. Do you want to read it? Yeah. Go for it. You put your hand up. Yeah, we'll get there. Go for it.
Adam named Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all the living.
Okay.
Yahweh Elohim made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. And Yahweh Elohim said, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." So Yahweh Elohim banished them from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden a cherubim
Yeah.
and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
Yeah, so to go back to pretty much what your I think Daniel's question was Daniel's question, right? As far as what does Eve mean, right? So it's pretty much like we said earlier with the curse, right? Is like she's pretty much cursed to pretty much have pain during childbirth, and therefore if she's pretty much having childbirth and everything else, that means that she's the mother of all living things, right? So that's what the name all Eves. Yeah, because obviously pretty much mostly all women have the chance to actually have.
Vanessa said to all the Adams, so to all the Eves, you are mothers.
Oh, yeah? All Eves, yeah? Okay, so, yes, go for it. I knew it. I was just waiting. You look too eager.
Boom.
Uh-huh. you have like all the questions in the world, and today you're kind of quiet.
I know Chris even took that pause. He was like, okay.
Yeah. I was like, I had to scan around. I was like, it'll come back to you. Don't worry. Okay, here we go. I knew it. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so Cain
Okay.
finds a wife.
Yes. You're already getting ahead of yourself. Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's
Eve, the mother of that wife.
Is Eve? Yeah. Here we go. We're not in chapter 4 yet. Yeah, we're not in chapter 4. Okay,
Like,
it's fine.
I know it's not mentioned
It's
in the
fine.
Bible, but like,
Yeah. Okay, so like, remember in the beginning, on chapter 4, we're going to get to eventually, right? It's talking about generations and everything else. It doesn't just say Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel and that's it, right? They had Seth too, but they're not telling you what order they actually had the kids. They're just really trying to tell you, hey, I'm really trying to concentrate on these names. But it also says that they have a lot more children out there, right? Yeah, they probably have tons. Yeah, it doesn't really
Wow.
say.
Well, yeah, because remember. Chill.
Hold on.
Remember Daisy, well, I don't know if it was when we were all still here, but remember we and Erenia and I, we were
Okay.
having a conversation with you and Daisy,
Mhm.
and we were talking about how, like, if we read history or whatever, right? If we read history, there you go.
Yeah.
We're not gonna see like our grandparents' names in there and stuff. Like they're focusing on certain people. So what they were telling me is that the Bible is that book that just focuses on those things and those people that are important, that lead us, to know God.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, and so go ahead, Daisy.
Comment. Yeah, so adding to what Vanessa says, pretty good. So if you think about it, how we started with Genesis 1 and we said, hey, God made all these things. And if we focus on that sixth day, when we said, hey, in day 6, God created these creatures and God created these humans. And remember, Chris was saying at the beginning, hey, this same theme of two people and the enmity of the, what was the definition you gave, Christian? Of
Yeah, it's
enmity?
pretty much like your friction.
Conflicting, the conflictions.
Yeah, confliction,
the
hostility.
conflictions
Yep.
Yeah, the confliction between these two, you're going to see that pattern again. So what happens in the story of Cain and Abel? Why out of all the kids did God choose, or through humans and his, why did God decide to put these two stories,
Like
these
more,
two people
yeah,
in? Yes, why
over
focus
the
on
other
these
ones.
two? Well, why is it? It's if you read, and I'm sure everybody knows the story, right? There's hostility. There's some hostility between these two brothers. So to answer that question, Vanessa was saying, out of all why are we just focusing on these two? Well, if we go back to Genesis 1, there's always going to be that confliction between two sets of parties, and that's why it doesn't mention any different types of brothers.
And I think the other thing to pretty much like remember too is that like the reason why we're so focused on certain things is because, like, what leads us all the time in the Bible to something else? Like, what is it that leads us all the time? Like, what's the story about all the time? It's not a trick question, huh? Evil? No.
Jesus.
Complete opposite. Complete opposite.
Jesus.
To Jesus. So the whole path, right? The whole path of the Bible, he's everywhere, right? As far as Jesus is everywhere in the whole
I
Bible.
don't know what Bible
Yeah,
you're reading, man, but
she turned gothic very quick.
It's not fake.
Yeah.
My brain, like, I don't know. But
I think we're stuck. I think we're stuck with the serpent. That's why. Yeah.
I got the question as
Yeah.
what drove you to do bad.
Oh, okay. I
So
see.
that's why you
No.
answered like that.
But I think because it's kind of like Cain and Abel, right? So like with like what Daisy's trying to say with Cain and Abel, right? Like, so you have like this version of like the perfect, pretty much like, you know, son, right? Which is going to be pretty much, you know, Abel. But then you also have this contradiction, which is going to be Cain. And so which one is looking more like the serpent? Which one's looking more like Jesus as far as to be like God, right? So you can see the difference. So that's what Daisy's trying to say is there's this hostility between them two all the time. And every story you're going to get to later on, it's going to be in Genesis and Exodus later on, it's going to be, there's always a hostility, right? And who's going to triumph over that hostility, and how do they triumph, right? So before we get more into that, let's kind of finish off, you know, chapter 3 a little bit more. So on verse 22, right, Yahweh Elohim says, man has now, right, become more like us, knowing good and evil. And he must not be allowed to reach out his hand and also take from the tree of life and eat, right, and live forever. So why is he saying this? Like, what does that mean?
Because they already took from the good and evil, and
Okay.
they can't take from the tree of life because the tree of life makes them saints again.
Okay.
Quotation
Okay.
marks.
So you're saying pretty much like you can't come. So
Yeah.
So you're saying pretty much since everybody went towards evil, they can't turn back and become like holy again, right? They're already passed. They're cursed. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Eric's got something. Go for it.
So basically, by knowing good and evil, they're already almost like God, and God pretty much is eternal. And if they eat the fruit of life, they're gonna be eternal too. pretty
Okay.
much becoming a God as well.
Okay, I like. Good job, Eric. They wouldn't be deserving of it. Okay. Anybody else have anything before?
What was the question again?
Okay, so on verse 22 it says, Yahweh Elohim said, the man has now become like one of us, right? As far as like Elohim, right? That knowing good and evil, right? So he's already saying that Elohim already knows what's good and bad, right? And so it pretty much goes to the next one, says, he must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever, right? So what is it? Why is it pretty much trying to really focus on that they can't be allowed to be pretty much part of, like, be allowed to go back to the tree and actually eat from it?
Well, same thing that she was saying. Like, basically, you know, they know good or evil and they will live forever.
Yeah,
That means there will be, like, you know, one of them, the Elohims.
sure.
And I guess, like, another point is, you know, they've already been kicked out.
Yeah.
So they can't go back anymore.
Well, it hasn't been said yet. It's, verse 22 hasn't been kicked out,
Okay,
but
like,
yeah,
again, they were going to get kicked
Sure.
out. So, like,
yeah,
basically, if you were in there
Yeah.
and you were in there, like, let's say you haven't done nothing bad, it's because you don't know good and bad.
right,
Now you know good and bad. You can't go back in there. It's like,
right,
I don't know, like, put two boxes next to each other. You're in one box or you're in another one. You can't be in both of them.
right,
So it's like you get kicked out of this box, you know, you have, you know good and evil, but you can't have eternal life.
okay,
Now you're in this one, you have eternal life, but you can't have, you can't know good and evil. Same
Okay.
thing. That's how I look at it.
here you go. She's on a roll
No,
already.
I
She's
don't
on a roll.
It's not a question. It's an
Okay.
example.
Okay,
It's like what he was saying. It's like if somebody lets you borrow their house for like the weekend or whatever, or
Yeah.
the summer, and then you break something they told you to be careful with,
uh-huh,
and then you, like they don't kick you out. No, they do kick you out,
Right.
and you want to come back, but they're like, no, you broke my.
yeah. And then it goes back to what we talked about last time. Remember last time we said about relationships and everything else, right? It was trust, right? So God has this trust, right, with humankind, right, and saying, hey, I expect you guys to do this. I'm telling you guys what to do it, right? And as soon as you break that trust, right, what ends up happening? Just like you're saying, right? If somebody breaks a trust from you, it's so much harder to gain that trust back, right? And so that's one point, right, for sure, that we can have, right? Do you have your hand raised? I can't tell. Okay, go for it.
It's
Yeah, you're like, you're pulling an Eric.
it's like what's it called?
Sorry,
They had-
Eric.
It's like they had options. But
Okay.
like each option had a disadvantage and
Sure.
an advantage, and the other one had an advantage and disadvantage.
Okay, consequence? Yeah, okay. So, and let's go back, right? So, remember we talked about, right? What was the tree that they actually ate from, right? That the serpent made them eat from? What was that tree called?
Good and evil.
The good and evil. Okay, remember, and there's two different trees, right? So, good and evil and the tree of life, right? And so, right now, he's talking about just the tree of life, right? And why is he talking about tree of life? Remember we talked about last time, what was the tree of life represent?
Like
Sure. Yeah, but also what else would it represent?
our relationship,
A good life?
our relationship with God.
A relationship with God? Okay. We can think about it as pretty much like God himself is the tree, right? As far as you look at it, huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, and they even said, remember we talked about last time, it said, don't eat of any tree, right? Eat of all the trees except for the good, good and evil. Don't eat from that one. So you can eat from the tree of life and be just fine. And he probably wanted you to eat more from the tree of life because, like Edenia is saying, you probably have a little more comfort as far as understanding and wisdom and everything else when you actually do partake in the tree of life. And so, and to your point you're saying earlier, if you eat from the tree of good and evil, now you're tainted. But if you go and actually eat from the tree of life, are you not now tainting pretty much God? Are you not like messing up pretty much that little like energy, that chemistry that's in there? And so that's what he's trying to do. So he's pretty much saying, because now that they are like Elohim in a way as far as knowing good and evil, right? Yeah, yes, I see you. Hold on. Because they're now like that, right? They can't have that power to pretty much be around the tree of life. That's sacred. We talked about last time, that's the word we're using last time as far as spiritual or whatever, is sacred, right? And so he has to pretty much say, I need to push you guys out. You guys have completely gone away from my trust, and you guys cannot be part of this relationship anymore with me. It was holy, and now it isn't anymore. So go ahead. Are you guys say something?
I guess we could kind of see that in today's day now. Back then, you had this tree and you had the evil tree. So
Sure.
you will go to this tree and eat it. I was same thing like the Bible. You will get from it. You will learn how to live your life according to
Right.
God. Got kicked out. We chose evil. Now I think of it like we don't have like the reach to that tree anymore.
Okay.
But we can get to it. Like with the Bible and stuff, like you can choose to go to this. Yeah, you can go to this tree, the tree of life.
Yeah.
And the tree of life back then, if you had it and you were in the garden, that means you were in eternal life.
Sure.
Now we again have that eternal life, but in a different way. We have to die, or
Sure.
we have to get God to come and stuff like that to have that tree.
Right.
But we do access it. Also, we do have access to that evil tree. I mean, you get all these things and good and evil now, but
Mm-hmm.
at what cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Daniel?
The tree of life, like that verse, kind of
Uh-huh.
reminds me of the tabernacle. That
Okay.
You can't go.
Right.
in there. Yeah.
Because what happens to the people that are really not supposed to be around there? They die.
Yeah.
They're
Not,
not
worthy.
Yeah, so they can go very much not worthy, not pure anymore, right? Tainted. Those words that you can use that pretty much say why somebody cannot be in a holy area, right? Those are the words you can use. And Daisy actually found a picture that actually might be able to be useful for us to actually look at, right? So we have one that's pretty much like, so you have two different pictures back to, left and right, right? On the left side is pretty much saying, at first, they created pretty much the dry land, right? And then God pretty much had the land of Eden, right? But then also in that land of Eden, there's also the Garden of Eden, right? So now we're getting even closer. But even in the Garden of Eden, you have the tree of life, right? Yeah, and so you have like this tree of life that represents pretty much, God, right? That's him. And so you see all those little steps as far as the closer and closer you get, the more pretty much like, and you can see, yeah, and pretty much on the right side. So you see on the right side, sorry, Vanessa, keep turning back and forth. Yeah, so you have the land of Israel and Jerusalem, right? That ends up being like their home eventually, right? But even within that spot, you have pretty much the courtyard, right? You can call it pretty much as far as that center, right? The town, you can say it. And then, but in there, you have a holy place, right? And the way you can think about the holy place would be like a church, right? But within that church, you also, as far as like back then, you had the holies of holies, which would be like the tabernacle, right? And you couldn't just walk in and go all the way to the very back, right? you had to pretty much, depending on who you were, you had to take steps. And because of that, there's a better relationship between us and God. As far as we can't just be like right away and say, I'm going to go in there and just touch this thing and everything's going to be fine. You had to work your way to it to actually know that wisdom, to know who God is. And then once you do know who he is, then now you understand what those symbolism means, what he actually means to us, and what is he playing a role into our lives, right? So that's one way to pretty much look at it. And I think she had another one too, but for right now, I'll go back. Daisy, do you have anything before I move on?
Yeah, but Caleb woke up, so I'll jump in a minute.
Okay, that's fine. So let's go back to Daisy's pictures real quick, right? So we had the serpent, right? And we had, as far as the seed, as far as that's going to go back. So we saw in the verse as far as what the curse was for the serpent. So it pretty much, human gets bitten, right? And then as soon as he gets bitten, bam, right, stomps on him, right? But because he stomped on him, right, they're both injured in this process, right? And there he goes, right? Man falls down in this process, right? But why does that happen, right? So why is he bitten? And who is the snake?
I can take it on if you want me to.
You want to take over?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I don't know what slide are you on?
Why is he bitten and who is the snake? Who's the snake?
Okay. So just going back to
real quick.
Genesis
Sorry, Danny's over here. Go ahead.
3:15.
3:15?
Yeah, so going
Okay.
back to that, and I'll put enmity between you and the woman, and between you and the offspring, and he will crush your head.
Yep.
And so that's why you see on the next slide, I guess,
Yep.
that he's going to crush his head, and then the one before it, he's going to bite the heel, right?
Right.
So then it says, and you will strike his heel. So that's what's going to happen. But at the end of it, this, if you see the next slide, I don't know what slide you're on, but the one where the man has fallen,
Yep.
this is because the snake has bitten him, he falls too. So now you have the serpent that has been killed because he has been crushed on the head, and you have the man also fall because he has been bitten by the snake. So
Yep.
in this picture here, you think that like that's it. There's no hope, right? So then the next slide that I have was, why was he bitten? Why was that man or human bitten, and who is the snake? Does anybody know? Have any thoughts on it? If
Real
not-
quick.
What, was he bitten because he was tempted?
Was the seed bitten because he was tempted? What do you mean by that? As far as like
Because
he got too close to it, or
the snake
okay,
manipulated Eve into eating the apple.
okay,
So is that what's happening? Basically, what's happening?
okay. So Adam, sorry, Abraham, sorry.
No.
No. Okay, go ahead.
I gotta
Sorry.
see it like it's literally in the picture, you know.
Okay.
He's like right next to it, and he's gonna stomp on it. At that point, I mean, it didn't say before the snake bit it, before he stomped on it. So meaning the man took the initiative of stomping it. So I
Okay.
feel like, you know, snake's right there. Like, you have a choice: go stomp on it, or just leave it alone, just walk off of it. So like,
Okay.
I feel like, you know, for something bad to happen to you, you can either ignore that or just keep going your way, or like
Okay.
go on an initiative of trying to knock it out or something like that, you know. Trying to, like,
Okay.
I guess, defeat it, I guess you will say.
Okay.
Or, like, let it get to you as well.
Getting closer.
Getting closer to it. And then, like, yeah, just try to, you know, stomp it, being quick, you know.
Yeah.
And then it knocks you down.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before?
And who is
Say
the
it.
snake?
Huh? They haven't said yet.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
what does the
So
snake
who is the snake? Yeah. And this one.
Who is the snake?
Yeah. Who is the snake in that picture?
The adversary.
The adversary.
The snake is
The offspring. Okay.
the snake is evil.
The snake is evil. Okay.
The world?
Oh, just evil. Okay. So they have pretty much. They're saying the snake is actually the sin of the world, I guess.
Okay.
The world. Oh, that says
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
That's pretty true. So in the next slide, you'll see there's a verse in Isaiah 53:5 where it says, "But he was pierced for our offense. Sorry, I'm reading far away. Offense. He was crushed for our wrongdoings. The punishment for our well-being was laid upon him, and by his wound we are healed." So if you think about what he's saying, that verse is saying is he was pierced for our offense. So
Yep.
in a sense, we are the humans, we are the snakes because of all of our wrongdoings. We actually pierced the human that came to like save us.
Yeah. So kinda-
There's also another verse in New Testament. I didn't write it down, but I remember
Okay.
talking about it during Daniel or Jonah, I can't remember, where yeah, like the people, the actual, if you remember the story of Jesus, who actually took Jesus in was his actual people. So that's what I'm saying. In a sense, we as humans, the wrongdoings that we do are the ones that ended up piercing him.
Right.
Because of our bad hearts, or dark hearts, if you want to call it. And that's what the picture depicts here is the person who has that dark heart is actually the one piercing into Jesus.
In a sense,
You had a
we are
comment?
the snake.
Huh?
We are the snake in a sense.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, all of us have that pretty much impurity, pretty much from the snake from the beginning, as far as from the seed, right? So, in a way, we are all pretty much in that sense, as far as being the snake. So if you look at the picture that Daisy had right here, right, there's a snake that's around the heart. Because we're in this world, we're all pretty much trapped. We're all trapped with pretty much all the iniquity that happened from the past, and we're stuck with it. And so what ends up happening, like what Daisy's trying to say earlier, right? All that sin, right, that we have in ourselves has to go somewhere. You guys are saying it like there, right? The snake is us as far as, it's just evil as far as the sin that's in this world, right? And if the world's full of sin, somebody has to take all that. Somebody has to take all of that sin, right, and put it somewhere and say, it needs to go somewhere else and accept it all. And that's what we talk about pretty much with what Genesis is already doing, right? And even in chapter 3, what do we see already? In the future is going to be pretty much somebody's going to come down and take all that. And because they take all that, they have to end up pretty much be crushed by it. But the reason why because they're crushed by it, they also save everybody. That person saves everything, right? You have to be crushed and absorbed and taken all of it in order for the rest of mankind to be able to succeed. So kind of like what you were saying earlier, right? Somebody's walking by, they see a serpent, and they want to step on it. Yes, in a way, but at the same time, you have to take all of that from what the serpent's trying to give you and push it away. We can't do that. Like for us, it's really hard for us to be like, I'm gonna take all of your sin and do something with it. No, dude, we're the opposite. If you take sin, you're gonna be even more sinful. It's not. We don't work that way. And kind of what the pastor's trying to do earlier was saying, hey, we have to build a foundation so that way we're not tempted by certain things. That way we know what we're trying to say, and that way we're not easily swayed by certain things, right? And that's what we're trying to do in here. And so, like, I think Daisy has another picture over here, right? And it's pretty much saying because he fell, right, he pretty much took everything, and because of that, right, he is holy. And for that reason, we can be holy through him. Go ahead, Abraham. You have
So,
something?
like, it's the stomping meaning of, like, that's the meaning of, like, him trying to, like an example, or like trying to stomp, all the sin, like, not the sin, I mean, like, the bad in us, like, trying to teach us something.
Go ahead,
let's
Daisy. You got
say,
something?
Yeah, so the stomping of him is, if you're looking at it in the story of Jesus, the story of him stomping the snake would be his resurrection, right?
Yeah.
But in order for his resurrection to have happened, what event had to happen for his
Yeah.
resurrection to happen?
Yeah, he had to. Yeah, he had to take all of it
Does
to
that
be
make-
actually. Yeah. And then,
Does that
and-
make sense?
Yeah. And the thing is also with pretty much like when Jesus comes down, right, like what else makes him different, right? Like when you look at Adam, you compare Adam and pretty much Jesus, what is the difference between them two?
They
It's
were-
not a trick question.
The differences?
Yeah, like what starts it off already to be like the differences between them two?
I mean,
I know we're kind of going a little bit different as far as
he
on
was
page,
born
but
from, woman.
okay.
That.
So okay. So let me just kind of like force, because we're already kind of running behind. We're already kind of running late on time anyways. But Jesus is, Adam was supposed to be. As far as the choices that Adam was supposed to pretty much make, it was supposed to be pretty much like Jesus. And so you have somebody that you can go back and say, well, who is God, right? Like, God, yeah, he's so great, and we can't be like him. But he sends somebody down here, right, that is human and shows us and represents to us what it means to be a person, what it means to be somebody here and not to be tainted. And he's the only one that can actually walk that line. None of us could. Not even Adam could in the beginning. And so he has to send somebody else again to say, show him what it was supposed to be like in the very beginning. And that's what, like Daisy's saying, the resurrection, everything else, he has to do that. Because from the very beginning, it's been messed up. So now it's kind of like the start over again, right? And to kind of show us all that it can be done, right? You have anything else, Daisy, before we keep going on?
Yeah. So the last, I don't know which slide you're on, but the one where the you
snake?
only have the one after he was before that, I guess. Just to close and to make sure that everybody understands, based off what is Isaiah 53:6 says, it reads, "All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way." So we do what we want, right? But the Lord has caused the wrongdoing of us all. So everything that we've done wrong to fall. Everything we have done wrong has fallen on him. And so again, it goes back to the whole resurrection and him having to take all that sin on the cross.
And I guess
And if you keep reading 53, that chapter, it's really pretty because it says that he didn't fight. He didn't go in fighting like humans do with swords and everything. He went silent. He did not say anything. And it reminds me of that song that we sing all the time, Vanessa, the Preciosa Sangre. And in that song, it says that pretty much that he's silent, and it's through that he
No abrió su boca.
fights and wins.
And I think also too, when you look at pretty much like you guys don't have it on my side, but it says, like Daisy's saying, all of us like sheep have gone astray. Why does it say sheep? Because what? Because Jesus is the pasture.
Because and then like
And then we
Yeah.
decide to take the wrong path.
Yeah, so like you have somebody that's actually in charge and saying, hey, you're supposed to do this, this, and this, and we're just like, nah, we're gonna go this way. So it's pretty much like you guys trying to say, right? Yeah, they're running free. And you have to pretty much herd them all back in. Same thing, yeah. So just think about those things as far as words are not there in the verses just to be there. Just think of the what those images are and what they represent. Do you have anything else, Daisy?
I have more, but it's running out of time.
Yeah, I know. So we might have to pick this up. So we're still not even done with chapter 3. We might be done with chapter 3 next week and just start already chapter 4. Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, so you guys good so far? You're good? Awesome. Okay. All right. That's it then. Daisy, I'll see you home in a minute.
This is
Yeah.
one last thing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One last thing
Hold up.
before. It's just we may go back again from chapter 1 to 3, because there's still so much stuff that I kind of want to like show a little bit. But 1
Sure.
to 3 are you're going to be your foundations for the whole Bible and everything that it brings. So anything that you see that's weird sometimes, you're like, oh, what does this mean? It always references back to 1 verse, Genesis 1 through 3. So just keep that in mind as you read the next chapter, right? So,
Okay. All right.
that's it. All right.
All right. Thanks.